Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and this week I'm joined by a very special co-host, one of my favorite people in all of triathlon, over 50 Ironmans, one of the greats, Belinda Granger. Welcome to the MX Endurance Podcast.
I am very happy to finally be here. It's taken a while, but we finally got here.
And again, we get to do this in person. We are in Poznan, or just out of Poznan in Poland. We are doing a Phoenix Futures Camp. And when I knew that you were going to be close by, I was very excited to get you over here to share your wealth of knowledge with future Olympians and all that stuff. So it is great to get you on this podcast. You are one of the biggest triathlon geeks I know out there. And I love it because I sit down with you and I go, Belinda, if you get sick of talking about triathlon, just let me know. And you go,
won't happen. Won't happen, honey.
How are you?
I'm very well. Honestly, it's been, I've been coming to Europe now for obviously racing and now working over 25 years. And this is my very first time in Poland. So it's quite exciting.
And we've actually, we were in Germany together for Sub 7, Sub 8, a month ago?
Yep.
And to be here again, it's funny. We literally live in the same country and we never see each other in Australia.
But we hook up over here in Europe and I love it.
I know it's funny. It's one of the things I love about this sport. I first met you, 2000 and probably 13 or 14 in Phuket.
Phuket, that's right.
At one of those races. And that was always one of my favorite things about going and doing those Phuket races was getting to see you and Justin. Always fantastic. And as I said, you are truly one of the greats of our sport. And not only that, since you've retired from professional racing, you've gone on to do so much for people playing along at home. You work with Challenge Family, Pro Liaison. People also know you do commentary. You were the commentator at the Collins Cup, which we might mention on this episode. You commented Challenge Roth. You do such a great job. I think when the first time I remember you commentating was Challenge Daytona when it was the PTO Championship. And I remember going, Belinda is good at this.
Yeah, that was one of the best races that I've ever commentated so far. So yeah, very, very cool event.
So we are obviously going to talk a lot about the Collins Cup this week, and it is obviously worth pointing out that you are in the commentary team. So you did an excellent job, I thought. I think that the event was really well covered. I certainly watched the entire thing because I think Australia time, it finished at 2 a.m. and I had to leave basically straight to go to the airport because I flew out at 6 a.m. So the timing worked really well for me. So I have watched the entire thing, and I'm probably not quite to the same detail of yet. But before we talk about the Collins Cup, there was a race that I wanted to talk about. And that is, we saw Alistair Brownlee do I think, incredible performance in Sweden over the weekend, Ironman Kalmar. There's been a lot of question marks over Alistair years now, I think, at this point. We know that he had that Cork race where he won, but there was no swim. Went to Kona, didn't have a great race. And people are, he's done. He's done. He's not going to do it.
It's all washed up.
He went and raced Busselton or Ironman Western Australia that same year, 7:46. I think he put minutes into Sam Appleton.
Yeah.
Again, and Sam Appleton, I think, is one of truly great athlete.
Fantastic athlete.
And then we've had all this stuff has happened. So it's very good to see because he obviously I think sort of tried to go to Tokyo, didn't. Then had a few little injury problems. Was going to do St. George. Got sick literally days before, and since then couldn't do sub 7 either. And again, from being on the inside, like we knew that he was red hot.
No, and devastated when he couldn't. I mean, it was obvious.
And then we saw him in Edmonton, and he had obviously the gut issues. And even myself, and people who listen to this podcast will know I've been so pro Alistair, thinking that this guy is one of the best athletes ever. Truly one of the greats. I've said so long, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And even
it'll happen.
Even I was starting to go, maybe not.
Yeah, but I think you had to be in Edmonton to actually see, and obviously being in the commentary box and getting the close up, and being there, it was obvious that this was not Alistair just saying, "Oh, I couldn't be bothered," or "Oh, I just don't have what it takes." He was in serious pain.
You could see
serious pain. So. You know what? I always say it, and being on the other side now and sort of being a step out of it and being able to look inwards, it actually pisses me off how fickle sport can be, how fickle it can be.
And how short people's memories are, especially in triathlon.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's very funny that, we say this a lot, but triathlon has a very short memory. And yeah.
When you're that talented, and I don't say it lightly.
One of the most talented athletes. And one of the most intelligent races.
Yeah. I don't say it lightly, because I talk about it quite often about being the full package. And when I say that, it's about being an all-round athlete, but having ridiculous amounts of natural talent. And I spoke about it a while back about Jan Frodeno, and I will say the exact same thing about Alistair Brownlee. And I think the issue with Alistair, when he crossed over from short course racing to long course racing, he was able to do all the training that was required. I think what's lagged a little bit is just that change of mindset. And there really has to be a change of mindset. When you race short course, it's fast, it's furious. Alistair's the sort of athlete that was able to dominate in the bunch. He was able to dictate and tell the athletes what to do. And they just did it because they were scared shitless of him, which is fine. You know, that's the way he raced, and that's the reason he won so many races. It's why he's Olympic champion. But obviously, when you cross over to long distance racing, it's a different mindset, particularly when we're talking about full distance. And it's not necessarily about dominating; it's about having patience. And I think if I could pick one thing with Alistair, is he just lacked that patience and being able to say, you know what, I'm just going to tuck that in my pocket for now, take it easy, and I'm gonna let it rip right towards the end when I need to.
Well, I look not only at Alice's Ironman performances, but a series of middle distance races as well. And you've seen that. And again, this is as purely as an observer, but it's always seemed to me like he's trying to take the same approach to long distance racing that he's taken to which works for him, which is go at the front and make my competitors want to die.
Yep.
And it never really worked for him. I mean, I still think that 2018 race at World Champs in 70.3 in South Africa between him, Jan, and Javier Gomez is the best triathlon I've ever seen in my entire life. But again, you saw Alistair, first 5K of that run, just go, I'm out of here, boys. See you later. Didn't work out. And then you look at the way that he approached, even at the PTO in Edmonton the other day. Perfect example. Off the front, let's go.
Yep.
And again, I've just assumed that he's always had this. This is what Alistair Brownlee does. And I think that the Kalmar result, this is a very long-winded way of getting to it, is, for me, I mean, Swansea, he was solo, so I don't think you can really compare it. But I was watching the tracker, and he was with the pack, and he was riding with the pack the whole way, and then he got off and ran an incredibly even pace run. He wasn't front. In fact, I think Jasper Svensson, off the top of my head, actually pulled away from Alistair at the start, and Alistair didn't try to shut it down immediately. It seemed like Alistair took his time. And he just did what he did. And we see him, he ran a 2:40 marathon for a 7:37 Ironman.
Solid race. Yep. Exceptionally solid race.
Got his Kona slot. And I hope and I think that we are seeing that expertise, that racing brain, that racing intelligence. We spoke about sports IQ today, but it's like he's gone, okay, I don't need to go out there and win this thing by 20 fucking minutes. I just need to win. I need to do my race.
The only difference, I think, in Kona is obviously in Kalmar, he's looked at the start list and he's looked at the professional athletes that were racing there. And he's probably, and this is no disrespect to those athletes racing there, but we know Ali's one of the greatest in the world. He's looked around and he's probably thought, as he should, you know what? I've got this. There's no reason why this race is not mine. And even though he did the right thing and he played it smart, he rode in the pack. He did take turns on the front. He was up the front. And then he was able to dictate the marathon, run his own race there, knowing that he was the fastest on paper by far, as long as he did the right thing and as long as he was sensible, which he was. We're not going to have that scenario in Kona because we're going to have the best. We're going to have the two Norwegians who are going to be coming out of the water behind, mind you. And why I think that Alistair really does have a legitimate chance of winning Kona, which I might not have necessarily have said a couple of days ago, because I thought he would have stressed about, oh my God, I've got the Norwegians. I don't want them running me down. I'm going to have to get as much lead off the bike as possible. I'm going to have to run the first half part of the marathon like a crazy man, and then I'm going to blow up, because that's what would have happened. But for someone like Alistair, and this is really tough for someone like Alistair Brownlee to do, because he's been at the top of his game for so long. And sometimes when you are at the top, it's very difficult to ask for help or to think that there's someone out there that can actually give you help that you are going to listen to. And I know that he was able to talk to Macca.
This is what I was going to get to. Yeah.
And I think that's the first step. And it's the first time I've actually thought, you know what? Just the mere fact that he's reached out to someone who's won Kona before.
Who's gone through what? Yes. Who's gone through, can't handle the heat.
Same sort of attitude.
Was the best
at
short
course. Do it on
course.
his own.
Rocked up, expected to just win the thing.
Nailed it in one hit. Didn't. had several goes where he was a pile of shit.
We were sitting there, and Chris goes, "I'm gonna go have this phone," and I looked at you,
yeah, we looked
and
at
I
each other,
said,
like,
"How
hold on
cool
a
is
sec.
it? How cool is it that this conversation is?" And I'm sort of like half talking to you, also half trying to listen
to it,
and like I'm like, this is again, because you're right, we're talking about 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Like I think there's something very like I need help.
Yep. Because I know that, Kalmar was great, but if we're brutally honest, the field was, he did a great time.
But I also think that kind of, again, to me, that shows like, we talked to people lost their minds over Gustav's Florida race last year. And he was 7:34-ish.
Mm-hmm.
He had Lionel pushing him for 21K that marathon, and then he jogged away. Like, Alice has basically done this without a lot of, I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm from the outside looking in, without a whole lot of pressure.
No.
Knowing that if he does his race, so to then drop a 7:37 relatively uncontested on the run.
It's impressive.
I think people always look at race results out of context and go, fucking Gustav 7:34, which is incredible. But you have to look at that Alistair performance, just like his Swansea performance, which was off the front, and he dropped that incredible run on a hard course. It's impressive racing.
It is impressive, Tim, but as you said, there was no pressure involved. And I think that's the only thing that will lead to Ali's failure in Kona is we know for a fact he's racing the best in the world there. There will be pressure. There is no if, buts, or maybes.
I guess what because I 100% agree with you. I think what I'm saying is I always think that there's the pressure, but there's also that in a field like Kona, everybody's naturally going to go faster.
Mm-hmm.
To drop a 7:37
on your own. Yeah, I agree. But I still think the fact that he's reached out to someone that has been there, done that, it was probably the smartest thing that Ali could have done. And it shows that he knows that he needs to talk to someone with experience in Kona, because I've raced Kona 10 times. And
Ali, pick up the phone.
It's a different ball game. It really is.
And I mean, again, it's very easy to speculate. And Christian I know you listen, Christian, you were amazing at sub-7. I think. But I still look at that and I just go, a fit Ali Brownlee who has the same bike team that Joe had. So let's assume they do a similar-ish bike effort. So he got off the bike with 3-minute lead over Christian, and Christian ran a 2:32.
Yeah, give or take.
Ali ran a 2:40. I reckon Ali
would have been very interesting.
And that's why I think
it would have been on.
You speak about that field in Kona. I hope that you look at have an Alistair Brownlee. I assume we're going to get a Josh Amberger there. I assume he raced in.
Yes, he's already got his. He actually got.
I know
his
he has the challenges with America, doesn't he?
Well, I'm hoping his plan is to definitely race Kona.
So we're going to have a Josh Amberger. We're going to have an Alistair Brownlee. So we're going to have some real swim power and bike power.
Yep.
And I hope that maybe Cam Worth learned his lesson in St. George to maybe not tow Christian
all the way up.
Let's put those.
He won't be a very popular man if he
Let's
does.
put those Norwegians under. Let's get them actually having to dig deep for this. Christian said he's going to run a 2:30 substitute, 2:35 marathon in Kona. That means Ali doesn't have to run a 2:35. He has to run maybe a 2:40,
which we know
we
know he can do. Whether he can do it in Kona or not, it's another question.
But it just makes me think that if, again, the sort of athlete that Ali is.
But at the end of the day,
it's a different race.
It's the World Championships. With that comes a lot of pressure. It's Kona. Conditions are brutal.
And there's going to be a Magnus Ditlev there as well, who I reckon we're going to see some fire.
I have a soft spot for Magnus Ditlev.
I don't have a soft spot for
Magnus Ditlev. And I think what I love about Magnus is for a guy that is so young, 24 years of age.
To equal Jan Frodeno's record.
The maturity that this young man shows in the way he represents himself. I mean, I watched him all last week at the Collins Cup when, a lot of shit was going down with some other athletes.
I don't know what you're talking about, Belinda.
Yeah, no. And Magnus just, he just gets on with business in the background, does what he needs to do, and he's a phenomenal athlete. Now, I don't even think we've seen anywhere near the best of Magnus.
Absolutely not.
If I look at his rise from being, I remember when he first burst onto the scene, when we first saw him, and we're like, who is this guy? We only talked about him as being a great bike rider. He was, I'll be honest, he was a terrible swimmer, and he was an average runner. And now, after the Collins Cup, the improvement in his swim and run, and we saw it in Roth, nothing short of phenomenal.
So a little peek behind the curtain, guys. But when the athletes we represent, we create a deck that we send out, and we always put a splash quote across the deck. And Magnus's splash quote is, "I'm not an Uber biker."
No. Well, he actually mentioned that. Actually, funny enough, it was a question that he was asked at the press conference in Roth. And they're saying, are you going to break the record? And, you're a great bike runner. He's like, well, I'm not. That's not really the end game here. I want to be renowned as being a swim bike runner. I'm a triathlete. And it's about crossing the finish line in first place, not about breaking bike records.
And again, you talk about that first time we really saw Magnus sort of splash onto the scene was at that Daytona PTO event. And again, the highlight of that race for me was that moment where Magnus goes flying past Alistair Brownlee, and you see Ellie be like, "Let's fucking go! Like, let's go! Here's someone.
Exciting.
This is good.
Finally, finally.
Let's have that happen in Kona."
Yeah,
because
I'd love it. I would love it.
And we were talking with Chris about this the other day, and he was saying, "Yeah, but Ali's going to be up the roads." I said, Magnus rode the minute and a half gap that he had to Jan in Roth in like the first 20 kilometers.
It was quicker than what we'd anticipated. That's
Absolutely.
for sure. And it wasn't like Jan was hanging around either. Jan rode very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited, but we could talk all about Kona. We could get down the rabbit hole. We said we know this was going to happen, but the event that we are obviously going to talk a lot about is the Collins Cup. Now, I understand obviously you work in commentary, so maybe you are not able to be as colorful. I'm not sure. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think a great place to start with the Collins Cup is we're going to talk about the lead up to it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something that a lot of people in triathlon have been talking about, and that is obviously the Lionel sandwich. The Lionel sandwich that we saw happen over the event. Now, I have seen everything, and I'll be honest, my opinion of this whole thing has probably changed a little bit throughout the week, and I fucking loved it. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I mean, again, I hope Sam Long is doing okay, because he didn't seem like he was doing okay when he had that emotional reaction. I don't know what it's like to be in his position, but I mean, I think the main place to start with that is we have to understand that the Collins Cup is not a traditional triathlon.
No,
it is not
at all.
It is not a mass participation 50. It is a match race. It is a head to head. So to have the head to head banter, trash talking, whatever you want to call it, between Sam and Lionel, I loved it. And that race, and I've heard so many people. I mean, I've seen it. It seems pretty evenly split to me. The people who loved it and the people who hated it. But I wanted to see that. Match 8 was the race that I wanted to see.
And if you look back at all of them, it really was one of the only races that was exactly what we wanted. It was
head-to-head racing. And let's take Sam Laidlaw out of it. We will talk about the specifics of it. But Lionel and Sam Long literally raced shoulder to shoulder, 20 meter from the start of the swim until the finish.
I know. Imagine if we could have had 12 matchups like that.
Like,
could you imagine how incredibly exciting it would have been? And that's what I think we eventually want to get. And I know there were two sides. People hated it. People loved it. People said it went too far. People said it didn't go far enough.
People were talking about it.
Yeah, people were talking about it. I've been in triathlon now since 1988. I did my first triathlon back in 1988.
Ridiculous, Belinda Granger. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Now, I'm a traditionalist through and through. I love the fact that we've got long course racing and it's still non-drafting, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? For our sport to get bigger and better, it needs to evolve. So we need people like Clash, like Phoenix, and sub 7, sub 8, like the PTO, coming up with new ideas. Super League. Oh my God, Super League's been incredible. We need this. If we don't have this, we don't evolve, and we stay the same stagnant sport that won't get any bigger, won't produce any more sponsorships, certainly won't get any more TV coverage. So we need to evolve. And so I'm sick to death of people, traditionalists. And at the end of the day, I'm a traditionalist. I still love swim, bike, run, non-drafting. But I also love the fact that we are evolving and that we are getting these different formats. It's good for the sport. Stop looking at it like I remember with sub 7, sub 8. This is not. How can you say this is a world championship time? No one said it was.
Yeah.
No one said it was a world record time.
One of the things, and it
just frustrates me.
Is I always think is like, just because there's something new, it doesn't replace the thing that you like still exists. And and if you don't like this one thing, you don't have to look at it.
No.
Like, I love Superman. I love Superman movies. I didn't particularly enjoy some of the last ones.
Yep.
It doesn't.
Yep.
It doesn't detract from the enjoyment of the ones that I do love.
Absolutely.
But it's not and I say this about triathlon all the time, is that then it's not I love it or I hate it. There is a spectrum.
Yep.
That goes from that entire thing, and we need to. I feel like triathlon is a sport of hyperbole a lot, where it is it's always an extreme reaction to something.
Well, I look at it like cricket. I think test matches.
Well, our Americans are going to be sitting there right now going, "Oh my God, don't talk about cricket."
I mean, obviously, I was brought up on cricket, and my pop used to watch the test matches, and I used to think that
was the long one, America.
Things on earth, and then they brought in the one dayers, and then they brought in the 2020, and all of a sudden, a sport that I would never even bother watching, suddenly became exciting for me, a non-cricket lover.
Yeah.
So this is what we've got to understand with triathlon. That yes, at the end of the day, I love swim, bike, run. I love long distance triathlon with non-drafting, but I still think that all of these other new formats are only going to make our sport bigger and better for us all.
And the hard reality, and I'm sorry, guys, if the existing models worked, we wouldn't be looking for new ways of doing it. And we're not talking about amateur athletes out there who love to participate in the sport going out and creating these. We're talking about the people who are trying to professionalize the sport, who are going, we need to change the way. Like it's happening for a reason.
Yep.
And I think that
I think it's great. Honestly, right now, and obviously I work for a variety of different companies in the sport and shareholders in the sport. It's the most exciting time ever for professional athletes. If I could turn the clocks back, hold on.
Not that long, Belinda. Not that long at all. 6 months, 7 months.
30 years.
Last year you were
25 years. I would, because I would love nothing more than to be a professional athlete right now.
And again, I find it very funny that people have, it's like we talk about the way it cycles. And obviously this is the MX podcast created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. I look at this, I'm like, I was drawn to Chris at the start because of the way he was. And I look at the Sam Laidlow, I'm like, I love this. And I'm not surprised. Like I look at, when I think about
Sam Laidlow is a good guy. I got to spend quite a bit of time with him. We went out for dinner in Edmonton with Sam Laidlow, Fenella Langridge and her partner Billy, who I adore, and also with Carl Smith, another young guy,
red hot.
24.
Carl Smith is red hot.
I can't say enough good things about these young guys.
Of course.
So the Magnus Ditlevs, Freddie Funk, Sam Laidlow, Carl Smith, all 23, 24 years of age, and they are just genuinely incredibly talented athletes, and they're good guys, and they're so misunderstood. And yeah, maybe they lack a little bit of maturity in some areas.
Sam
but
is Sam. Exactly. I was about to say Sam is the one thing. The one thing I thought I was like a little bit like, and not because I just didn't. I thought that rap was a little bit like, this ain't it, Chief. But it doesn't make me go, well, because he's done that one thing that I don't like, everything is.
He's a bully, he's an asshole. Yeah, exactly. I know.
And again, like
I love Sam Long too. I think he's misunderstood as well.
I think Sam Long
he's a great guy.
I think I've said this to, I really watched the reaction to Sam that Sam had, and it genuinely made me concerned for Sam. I'm like, I feel like, and again, I don't know, but I'm like, I hope Sam Long's okay.
Yeah.
Because it really, and again, you look at the seasons he's had this year. He was second at 70.3 Worlds last year. He had some incredible performances, really bad St. George race, announces that he's not going to go race Kona, goes to Roth, doesn't
perform as he wanted
I didn't even know he was in the field.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten he was there, and we've seen him have. I still think his out to Airs on a one by, I think is fucking hilarious. But he's had a rough year, and knowing the way that professional triathlon works, at some point there's going to be pressure not only from yourself but from sponsors and all these people. And I looked at the way Sam was reacting, and I'm like, there's something.
There was things going on in the background. Put it this way: if Sam Long had won Roth and had fantastic races all the way through his European tour, possibly he wouldn't have given a crap. Correct. Sam Laidlow had done.
That was.
I think he was always a little he was already a little fragile when he turned up, and Sam Laidlow.
He's been at him for months.
It was the icing on the cake that just pushed him over the edge.
Because I still think there was hints of it. There was hints of the Sam, because Sam said, "You're just going to cramp on race day and make excuses." And I wish he just said that and left it at that. Because that's exactly what happened. And if Sam had have just been like, well,
but to Sam Long's credit, I was down there on the finish line, obviously, when Sam and Lionel came across at the Collins Cup, and I went up to Sam, and I was genuinely happy for him, because, as I said, I've known Sam for a long time. When he first decided to turn pro and came over to Noosa. And I spent a lot of time with Sam then. And he's genuinely a really lovely guy. He really is.
I've had lots of chats with Sam on the podcast and off the podcast. And I remember
he's a good guy.
I remember, I think I assumed when Sam Long first burst on the scene, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I remember the first time I spoke with him away from everything, like talking to Sam Long, I walked away, I was like, this is a very intelligent, very
absolutely.
switched on, like
Yep.
not the Sam Long we're seeing.
No.
And so I did go, okay, and I get it, but I also can't go through the whole thing saying I've loved it. And then I kind of wish, and I guess it had to go that way because of the turn things took. But to see them all be like buddy at the end, I kind of wish Sam and Lionel had been like.
See, this is where you and I differ. I'm the mother hen.
Of course, but we can't agree on everything. Otherwise, it'd be very. I kind of wish.
I did go up to Sam and I said, you know what? This is the end of this now. You don't need to say another word. And he agreed. He said, no, I won't be saying anything. I said, and so I was happy that look, are they going to be best friends? Are they going to enjoy a beer together? Probably not. But you know what?
But I want to see them race again.
Who says we need to be best friends with everyone at the finish line? But absolutely, when they race again, I'm sure Sam Laidlow will be out to absolutely get blood. But again, he should.
I also think, again, one of my favorite Macca stories, one of my favorite Chris McCormack stories is the Faris Al Sultan,
I was there.
Norman Stadler, Chris McCormack, I'm going to retire you. That story still, and again, if that happened, that's why I think I can't sit here and go, I don't think it's appropriate. But no, I'm so anyway, that's one part of it. There is so much more to talk about. You'd think that was the only race that happened. But again, I put out a tweet this week and I stand by it. Two of the most exciting triathlons I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years have involved Sam Long racing Lionel Sanders.
Yep.
I want to see those two race.
That's probably the biggest thing that's sad about this is we concentrated so much on Sam Long and Sam Laidlow, who again, extraordinary athletes, and I love when they race. But let's go back to Lionel Sanders. He's a freak of nature.
But I also kind of love that because Lionel gets the lion's share. See what I did that little. He gets a lot of like when Lionel does a race. Lionel has the most rabid feet.
Well, would you believe it that we just spoke for like 6 hours? Because I have Belinda Granger here, so you know it was 6 hours, and we realized
exaggerate more than I do.
We realized we lost 5.5 hours of it. So we're gonna have to. No, we lost like maybe 10 minutes. We were talking without realizing that we'd lost the recording. So we've got it open this time. So if you see us looking, it's because I'm just checking that it's parents. We're going to continue to gaze long into each other's eyes. But we were basically talking about Lionel's incredible performance, which is fantastic, and then we talked about the fact that an athlete who didn't get the love that they deserved a little bit maybe was Daniel Beckergaard, and I think I was saying that. One of the things I noticed was them saying that his result doesn't really matter, and I thought that was a slight error. Daniel Beckergaard to me is one of the most talented athletes.
For me, he's a standout athlete this year. I think he's been quietly chipping away. I know he spent some time 3 weeks with Sam Laidlow up in Font Romeu. It's his first time training up in altitude ever, and he was a little not concerned, but he was just he had no idea how it was going to go, and I think he proved that when he raced so spectacularly, because I really thought that Braden Curry would at least be able to stay with him for a while, but Daniel cleared out very, very early on in the swim and never looked back.
Well, not even just cleared out. He made the conscious decision to swim a very different line.
Exceptionally strategic racing, and it paid off. And I've really just seen a maturity with Daniel Beckergaard. Now he's a little bit older, obviously, 26, but he just, you always saw it with Danny Ryf on the weekend as well. They just have this quiet confidence about them. And then race day comes and he shows it.
See, I know Daniel a bit. Daniel is one of my favorite athletes. I think he is.
Me too.
We sat down with Daniel a couple of days before the St. George race, like in person. We were there and we were recording. And he said on the interview, he's like, why aren't people talking about me? And I'm like,
I am.
No, we are now but that's one of the things I love about Daniel, because when he's on that 3:29 in Dubai, not like obviously Martin beat him this year, but last year that 3:29 Dubai was fire. Yeah. When I first met Daniel, I didn't even realize he was the finish tape guy, but I think Daniel is.
I still talk about that. I don't even understand what the damn fuss was about with that.
I remember watching him being like, now I get it. And again, context is matter. He'd just been basically dumped by the Danish Triathlon Federation. Like, I get it. Context is important. But no, he was absolutely red hot. Now, we went into a bit of the specifics about broadcast. I think I talked about some of the frustrations I had, but I think that they've improved a lot. But I think obviously we spoke about that for 6 hours, so I think it's time that we turn our attention to the actual races. Now, I think
Yes.
what we'll do is we're going to try to run through each of the matches.
Mhm,
We'll give some of them. I have a lot to say, some of them not so much. But I think that we're going to go in order. Do you want to go in the order they happened?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Or do you want to go in the order of impressiveness? Because the first one was pretty.
Well, we can. Well, if that's the case, we can go with the first one because to me, one of the most impressive races of all 12 was Daniela Ryf. Freaking believable.
Absolute. Daniela Ryf. And I've said this so many times. I think I did the Obsessed Triathlon website, did a fantasy like the PT did last year. I got all but 2 of the matches. I picked.
That's impressive.
I picked Flora to win, and the other one I picked Ellie to beat Holly.
Right.
But otherwise,
otherwise you got
guys, you know that I'm the Nostradamus of triathlon. I'll show you. But I genuinely, I've said this. I think I was starting to question Danny before. It's the first time I didn't pick Daniela Ryf with St. George. She did what she did. Danny's back. But I still was thinking maybe Danny is at a point where it's Ironman only. Like she's going to be excellent at Ironman, but maybe not middle distance.
Not anything under that.
I couldn't be more wrong because she was phenomenal. When she passed Flora, I expected Flora. We know that Flora is a good biker. And again, full disclosure, we've had Nicola Spirig here the last couple of days, and I spoke with Nicola about this, and Nicola made a good point. She said Flora Duffy is a very good bike handler. Daniela Ryf is a very fast.
And you really didn't need bike handling skills for that course on the weekend.
Correct.
Let's be honest.
Flora's not ridden a TT bikes, but to ride 5 minutes into Flora Duffy,
it's impressive.
I couldn't believe.
No, it was.
And her finish time was so much faster than anyone female. Else. Yeah. I'm going Danielle. I'll say it. Danielle is going to win Kona.
It's a no-brainer. It's literally a no-brainer.
No, but I was talking.
I'm sorry to every other professional female that's towing the line in Kona, but
I mean, we will talk about Lucy Charles a little bit later because of her, and I think she ran the fastest because was it the same course?
No, different course. Completely.
I know that Lucy's run split was faster than everybody.
Yeah, no, they had a completely different run course. They had a 4-lap run course.
But I think that Daniela is going to win Kona.
Yeah,
like she's going to.
So I chatted with Danny 2 days before the race. It was actually the opening ceremony. I got a chance before they went in. I was able to have a chat with Danny, and I've spoken to Daniela many times, and I've always thought she's incredible. I think she's one of those. She reminds me of my husband. She only talks if she's got something good to say. Otherwise, she just stays quiet. Like myself, can't shut up.
What are you talking about? You're very reserved and you barely give your opinion on anything.
I know my strengths and weaknesses. But that's what I love about Danny. She'll only talk if she's got something to say. And I when I had this conversation with her, I probably spoke to her for about a good maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
Bullshit, it's you.
No, it was
45 minutes.
They had things to do. And I walked away from that conversation.
Did you notice that she left? Did you just keep talking and then
I was probably talking to a brick wall.
Where'd she go?
She just had this calmness about her, this quiet confidence, which you see every now and again with an athlete when they don't need to tell you what they've been doing or how good they feel, because it's irrelevant. They know, and they don't need to shout it out, across the room. And I just walked away from that conversation thinking, holy shit, this girl's in really good form. And you could just see she was relaxed and happy to be there after last year's Collins Cup where things hadn't gone right. She'd had, I think the second vaccination, it didn't sit well. She got a little bit crook. She also got a bee sting, and she had a bit of an allergic reaction to it leading into the race. So things weren't great. So
she also went through some significant changes over the last.
She did, changing of coaches, and just a lot of things in her personal life as well.
Everybody's just gone through the most fucked up period of most of our lifetime.
With COVID, exactly. Everyone was awful. And so, you're right. As I said earlier in the podcast, sport's fickle, and you can be the greatest athlete in the world. You have one bad race and everyone writes you off. It gives me the shits, to remain relevant in sport. And this is not just triathlon, this is any sport. If you don't keep winning races, all of a sudden you're washed up and done. Like we started to think, people started to think with Alistair Brownlee. And the same thing was happening with Daniela Ryf. But, obviously she came out once in George, didn't need to say anything afterwards because no one needed. It's like, I'm back, and I never really left. So excuse me. And then after speaking to her at the Collins Cup, I walked away thinking, well, that's the Danny Ryf that we all remember. And I have no doubt that she's going to win. And I was like you. Before that, I thought Flora Duffy. But then after having that 5-10 minute conversation with Danny, I knew that it was going to be Danny.
And again, I've said it, I'm going to say it a lot probably this episode, but context. Flora has had the biggest year of her career.
Yep.
She's
Incredible.
had, but then she's had, and I spoke with Flora last week, and I said she's then had a very different 2022, COVID twice, issues. Like she has not had, we I think as fans, we don't always read the form book. We look at the athlete and we
think that's what we look at. We can't look past that. Yeah.
And again, we're talking about she's had the, I think it's.
Hey, she's a little bit like Hayden Wild. I think they both dipped their feet in Collins Cup, and they came up a little short. And Hayden had been sick the week before, and I have absolutely no doubt that if they concentrated on this distance, and we've got obviously Dallas coming up, and I'm hoping that both these athletes are there. I'm pretty sure Hayden will be. I have no doubt that if they knuckle down, do a little bit more work on a time trial bike, and get used to that position, there is no doubt that these two athletes will dominate.
It's funny because I'm very good friends with Hayden. Like, I love you, Hayden. But I look at Hayden's middle distance racing because he's done a few of these races.
He's done a couple too.
Guess who beat him in Taupo 70.3? Kyle Smith.
Kyle Smith, yeah.
And in Tauranga, I look at Hayden and I think eventually, but I still wonder, like, he's very, very good at the short stuff at the moment. And I think I expected. I love you, Hayden, but I expected more from him in that matchup. But
I think with Dallas, with Hayden, I still think he lacks and I know he's a very strong biker and dominates the groups in World Triathlon.
He rides to the group and then dominate.
However, it's still very different. I still think if I was to say if he has a weakness over the PTO distance, the 100K distance, it would be time trialing for 80 kilometers.
But I remember looking at him on the bike. There was a shot of Hayden on the bike as he passed Ben. And I was like, fucking hell, Hayden looks like a professional time trial. So I couldn't.
He just needs more time on it. That's all. I mean, he even admitted he had seven rides.
We're jumping ahead of ourselves, but we need to get back to.
Sorry.
The other athlete that I want to talk about in that race is Sarah True. Now, I have said I think Sarah True fourth at the Olympics and fourth at Kona. I've been very
fourth World Championships. I think she's come fourth 3 times.
I've been
major events.
I was very excited to hear that she made a return to 70.3 race and then to make a return to Ironman and have to. So I was curious to see where Sarah True was at that race. I was a little, and again, context is important. We're not talking about a fully ready 100% Sarah True, but she was sort of made kind of irrelevant, to be honest. Like, and I don't mean that. We're just talking about Daniela Ryf made Flora sort of a little bit, I don't want to say irrelevant, but I did notice something, and I don't know whether you saw this as well. It looked like Flora had something wrong when she got off the bike in T2. She sort of sat up or she stopped, and I thought, did you notice that as well?
And maybe it's because she just hadn't been on a time trial frame for long enough. There's no doubting that she's a phenomenal bike rider, but I agree with that. She's more phenomenal with her bike handling skills than she would be at time trialing down in the error bars in that extreme position for 80 kilometers. And it really was a true time trial. It was 40K out into a tailwind, and then 40K back into a sort of headwind / crosswind. And that can take its toll, particularly on your hip flexors. Yeah. You get off the bike and all of a sudden it's like me getting out of this chair after this podcast. It's like, oh God.
Hey, we got Michael Goodrow, the parkour athlete. I know you're going to be doing some parkour stuff this week.
Oh, fantastic. I'll be broken.
Yeah. But there's 11 more of these races.
I know.
So let's go to match 2, which was Laura Phillip, Chelsea
Sodaro and Ash Gentle.
I was not even, after what Ash did in Edmonton, I had
no doubt.
Absolutely no. People,
I don't think any of us did.
No, I was surprised. Again, looking through the result, we did an MX League and stuff. A lot of people picked Laura Phillip, and I think Laura Phillip is an incredible athlete. But I still, I mean, we saw what she did in Dubai to Danny earlier this year. I still think that she's another one of those athletes who is very good at the Ironman and is good at 70.3. Whereas to me, Ash Gentle is. I said at the start of the year, I think Ash Gentle could win 70.3 Worlds this year.
Said the same thing to Ash a couple of days ago. I think next year,
I said it before,
she should just concentrate on all of the PTO races.
Yeah,
and 70.3. She's got no desire to step it up to long distance racing. Why would she?
Exactly.
And what I love is that, she had a little bit of she didn't have the experience she deserved to have in Tokyo. And obviously with COVID and all of our Olympians having to come home and be stuck out in the middle of the damn desert for 2 weeks in bloody quarantine. And I think back now and I think how miserable that must have been when obviously Ash didn't have the race that she wanted.
She had a lot of pressure on her shoulders.
It infuriates me actually to think about it.
I'm actually really happy to see Ash. I think
doing incredibly well now.
I've said it this entire year. I think Ash Channel is going like her swim is a weakness, not in middle
distance. It ain't. It's great.
And again, like context.
Yeah.
She did what to Emma Pallant-Brown?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the other way. She did what to Paula Finlay?
Paula Finlay in Edmonton.
Like,
and Paula's in fantastic form.
Correct. I mean, we're gonna. Oh yeah, it was always Ash Channel for me. So this race, I was surprised. Chelsea Sadar after
Chelsea had a bad day, she admits it. And you know, whenever you've got 36 of the best athletes in the world, there's going to be some that just have shitty days.
And again, I don't know Chelsea Sadar. I've never spoken a word to her, but she looked maybe a bit tired.
Yeah,
she didn't look like the Chelsea Sadar that I'm used to seeing. So I was a little bit, but the race went the way I picked that race. So
in saying that though, Laura Philippe looked like she was in complete control all day. She just didn't have that next gear, that next little level of speed that you need. But I truly believe that Laura Philippe will 100% be a podium in Kona.
So do I.
No ifs, buts, or maybes.
Yeah, 100%.
So I still think obviously Danny is the favorite, but if something should happen to Daniela, God forbid, Laura Philippe will be the next one up there.
Well, we're here. Let's just
amazing.
Who's your podium for Kona?
Danny, Laura. Oh, I don't know.
Is Lucy going to be there? Can she be there?
I don't think so.
70.3 world title, so I think she does.
No, I don't know. I actually don't know.
If she's there, I'm going to go Lucy.
I don't know. That's a good point. I have to find out.
Like, no, 70 what she gets.
Yeah, she gets a slot, but
whether she does it or not.
But I just don't know if she'll do it yet.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll be interesting.
Who's match three? Match three.
All right, match three. Who was match three? Bloody phone. Hold on.
At least the recording's still happening.
You'd think I'd know.
Come on, you're in commentary. What do you do?
Kat Matthews, Sky Monch, and Paula Finlay.
Again, this race I think went the way I.
Yep, we knew Paula was in form after Edmonton.
And Kat has had a huge year, and at some point you have to start to show that fatigue.
Yep.
And I saw Kat's post. I saw Kat's face on the broadcast. She didn't look like she was having a good day. I saw Mark was interviewed during the race, and he was even surprised that she was going backwards. This race went the way that I expected it to. I thought Paula would win quite comfortably, to be honest, because I think people forget Paula Finlay is a fucking good bike rider.
She's a brilliant bike. She's the national TT champion. She dominated the bike in Edmonton. I mean, she's in a good place right now.
And I know that Kat's an incredible runner and an incredible biker. But I think I looked at Kat at sub, and she kept saying that she was a limiting factor for her team on the bike, which surprised me. And then to see her sort of losing time, I'm not sure. But I think she's had a big year. And that also makes me curious about Kona for Kat, because I think earlier this year I was very much, I think Kat's going to have a real chance there. I think you're incredible, Kat. I don't know. There's a few things. And I think that if she didn't, she has had a phenomenal year.
The thing about Kat Matthews is she's an incredibly intelligent woman too. So even though the weekend wasn't a particularly great day for her, I think she'll go back to the drawing board now, and she'll do everything within her power to make sure. And I know that Kona is the next big one, and I'm not even sure that she's going to be racing Dallas. I think she'll play that by ear for now and see how things are going, because Kona is the next big thing.
Of course. And again, Kat is an athlete that is very good at Ironman.
At lifting when she needs to lift, and the big events, and she proved that in St. George.
Yeah, but I look at Paula Finlay. I think Paula Finlay, Ashley Jennell are two, I'd say 70.3 specialists.
Exactly.
So I'm not surprised.
Whereas Kat's not.
And I'm not surprised to see them have those right. And
anyway, Kat gets my award for being best dancer. We had a good dance at the dance together at the after party.
And Sky Munch, I love Sky. I think Sky's an incredible athlete. So
she is.
Sky's genuinely one of my favorites.
And again, another athlete that is way more suited to full distance.
Correct.
So next one, Nicholas Spirig, Sophie Watts, and Victoria Lopez. Well,
and we've had Nicola here. I think Nicola proved a lot of people. I still, to this, I genuinely, when all the furor.
To me, she didn't need to prove shit. Sorry, I'll say it like that.
I genuinely didn't think it was. I was not, when I heard that they picked her as a captain, I wasn't. I was more upset. Holly Lawrence was the one that surprised me, but I think I still expected Victoria to. I expected
at least give her a little bit of a run for money.
I thought it would get different. Yeah. What a domination!
Yeah.
What a domination by Nicholas. She was sixth fastest overall. Do it at her last international event.
Event, that's right. She's still got a couple of more races to do in Switzerland, which she's supposed to do a half Ironman in Switzerland, which she said she might be changing to an Olympic distance, which I don't blame her. And then I think she's got a half marathon to run as well.
She's going to leave the sport as genuinely.
She's dominated. She has
one
dominated
of the greatest athletes
over every distance
ever do our sport.
And people say, hold on a second, she didn't do Kona. Well, yeah, she didn't do Kona, but the one Ironman that she did do, she won. 5-time Olympian.
2 medals, gold and silver.
What is it? 6-time European champion. I mean, the woman's incredible.
Mother of 3, qualified lawyer. Did sub at
she's unreal. And you know, she copped
rode a TT bike.
She copped a lot of flack after Edmonton for riding a road bike, which she's always done. And
she said it. I just wanted to shut them up.
Yeah, and so you know, she went full throttle, time trial frame with the disc, and yeah, she did cop a lot of flack after Edmonton. And I'll be brutally honest on this podcast now. I was a little disappointed with the way that she raced in Edmonton. Did it change my view on Nicholas Brigg? Absolutely not. One race doesn't define an athlete, for God's sake. How ridiculous for a woman that's had the most incredible career ever. One race is not going to define her. She had a shitty day, and she didn't race the way we know and love, and she copped a lot of flack for it. I think far too much. And so yeah, I think in Collins Cup she just wanted to prove, you know what, you want to see me ride a time trial frame and time trial over a flat 80k course, I'll do it for you.
Boom, mic drop.
And she did. Yeah.
Sophie White's obviously the only DNF. I'm not sure what happened, but I hope she's okay. And yeah, so it was
a fairly typical result.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day.
I think picked it. Wasn't what I wasn't surprised to see it. And who's next?
Holly Lawrence, Jocelyn, Mccauley, and Ellie Salthouse.
I got this one completely wrong.
Well, you know, statistics say there has to be XYZ athletes that have shitty days. And unfortunately for Ellie Salthouse, she was one of those athletes.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen, when we say a rerun, as Holly and Ellie said all week, that ship sailed after last year's race. There was no animosity.
Yeah.
It was fun for that year. Why? I don't know. I don't know why we try and create something that's already been done. I think we look for new things, and that was probably the only thing that I was.
And we just had the discussion of this, or maybe we lost it this year, but I'm not surprised, because I think it's that intention that they're trying to get there, and which I don't dislike, but I always say I'm happy to be proven wrong. I didn't think Holly probably deserved the captain's pick, but she proved that she deserved it on the weekend. The way she raced,
absolutely,
she was phenomenal.
And you know what, Holly's had a really up and down year. She's
had
a
very up and down
years. No, she has.
So it was great.
And you know, obviously, I've been at races, for example, in Vietnam 70.3, where Holly's just ridden off the front and never looked back, and Kui's been between her and second place. So I know Holly's an incredibly talented athlete, and I travelled over from LA with both Holly and Paula, and just chatting with them in the lounge before we got on the plane and then on the plane, and they were just so happy to be there and in a good headspace. So I knew that they were both going to have good races, and they both did, and they both did exactly what I thought they were going to do.
Yeah, again, the race, I really thought it went differently, but I'm very happy. I thought it was great to see Holly have that performance, so that was great.
And so we've got last women's race, last matchup, Annie Haug, Jackie Herring, and Tamara Jewett.
Now I picked this result, but watching when Tamara got off the bike with Annie,
You're thinking, shit,
Tamara
Jewett,
Tamara is gonna Annie Haug is just one of the best athletes.
She's back to her best. She's actually back to her best.
She's my podium. Annie, I reckon it's going to be.
Well, there you go. That's the podium. You're right.
Annie,
and Laura Phillip.
Yeah, I reckon that's a good podium.
I agree. And the interesting thing is, Annie Haug has always been an incredible athlete, but what people don't realize, you know, after COVID, she had so many issues. She ended up getting COVID-induced diabetes, which a lot of people don't realize, and it is a thing. And so she had to completely change her diet and get rid of the diabetes, which she has done, but obviously you don't do that overnight. It's taken time. And then it's taken time for her to build back to the athlete that we all know and love. And then we saw that said athlete in Roth, where she had an incredible race.
I expected her to go faster in Roth, though, to be honest. After what she did the year before with the start, I genuinely thought we were going to see Annie go. I thought she was going to break Chrissy's record this year, purely based on, and context is important, based on last year's performance rather than the form she's had and all that stuff you just said.
Yeah.
But
yeah, still, she did what she needed to do.
She looked so good running too. She did. She was, and I find it so funny because I look at Annie Haug running, and she looks like this scary, intimidating woman. And then you speak with Annie Haug, and she's the loveliest,
sweetheart,
bubbliest, most pot. And the first time I spoke to Danny Hag, I'm like, this is not how I expected
No,
this.
no.
I was quite intimidated. I was like, shit, she's going to be a bit of a. And she's
she
not.
was incredible. And you know what people don't realize is Tamara Jewett right now still holds the fastest half distance time for the run.
Yeah.
109. 113, excuse me.
Yeah.
113. And there's no woman that's even got close to that. She's a great.
Do you think the difference was, did she, because I watched it and I assumed that the girls weren't riding that hard, or do you think that Tamara rode harder and that's why she didn't run as well?
You know, Barry Shepley actually mentioned that in the broadcast. What I was most surprised at is that the fact that Tamara Jewett got out of the bloody water with them.
You know,
I mean, Tamara Jewett is not a good swimmer, and she got out of the water with these women. So I think Tamara's like, oh my God.
Do you know what else?
Normally I'm chasing all day and I'm actually here from the start.
You know what else I heard Barry Shepley mention on the broadcast a few times? That he trains in Tucson, the same pool as Lionel and Sam. I heard that a few times on the broadcast. Just a few times.
A few times. But he did mention that maybe Tamara overbiked, but what people don't realize, Tamara's a bloody good bike rider. She's not a good swimmer.
Yeah.
So she's chasing all day.
I thought there was a lot of that there was a lot of people who had swims that I wasn't necessarily. Yeah.
I know we're getting on to him later, but even him, you know, anyway. So I think Tamara had, even though she was in second and, you know, she wasn't disappointed. I went up to her after and said, oh my God, you've just had the best swim bike run that I've ever seen you do, because normally she's just complete race.
Yeah.
She should walk away thinking, wow, I've just had a breakthrough right now. So yeah, I thought Tamara had a great race, and obviously she was still second to Annie, but you know, Annie's in form.
Annie Hag as well.
Yeah. So exactly.
On to the men. First race,
Yes.
Christian Blumenfeld, Hayden Wild, Ben Canoe. Now, again, this was a race that went different. I expected we were going to see Ben. See you later, boys.
Yep, out of the swim on his own.
And
me too.
And it just, yeah, I didn't see as much of this race as I would have liked. I sort of alluded to. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure what we lost or didn't, but Christian Blumenfeld won the race. Shocking. Like, wow.
Really?
Imagine that. Christian Blumenfeld, the most red hot male triathlete in the world at the moment, doing what he did.
He's insane.
Again, it was interesting to see that, you know, we talk about Christian as an athlete. He didn't just go to the front and hammer it. I heard him say in the post-race thing, he sort of waited till about the 50K mark, because he's like, that's when I know it gets tough, because I think he was obviously looking at Hayden probably more.
And he admitted it. He didn't want a running race against Hayden, because he knows the caliber athlete or runner that Hayden is. Yeah. So
and he just
smart racing.
He just did his thing, and he ended up. Did he get 6 points? I think he got.
I'm not sure if he got 6, but he definitely had the fastest time
overall.
Yeah.
So, off a killer run. Christian's incredible.
But that was the first time I got to meet Hayden Wild.
Really?
What an absolute sweetheart.
I know. Like I said,
Hayden
is I'm happy to call Hayden a good friend of mine.
Oh, he's absolute. You know, I am yet to meet a dud Kiwi for such a small country. Every athlete that comes out of there, male or female, they're all just the coolest.
Well, I usually race in New Zealand. I love racing in New Zealand. I always joke that I'm an honorary Kiwi, because so many of their 70 Tauranga half, Taupo 70.3. I've never done Challenge Wanaka, but I love it, because I find it's if I could pick a race in Australia or New Zealand, I'd prefer to race in New Zealand every day.
I don't blame you. They're just I mean, apart from New Zealand being one of the most beautiful countries in the world, but the people,
you know, fucking talented athletes.
Oh my gosh!
Like, how they punch above their weight? Like,
so incredibly talented. But for me, you know, obviously having to work with these athletes, just such delightful and easy people to work with. I mean, Braden Curry spends a lot of time in Noosa, and getting to work with him. I coach his son when they come to Noosa, Tan, and just the most beautiful kid. I always joke with Braden Curry that, you know, when I come back in my next life, I'm coming back as one of his kids, because they have the best life on earth, because both Sally and Braden are just the most genuine, beautiful people. And I could say that about every single Kiwi I met. Rebecca Clark, another one.
I love Bex. Yeah, Bex is a good friend of mine. So
I know it sounds like I'm going over, but I cannot say enough good things about the Kiwi athletes.
Yeah. But again, I think the race went very much how we sort of expected. So match 1, don't have that much to say. Christian did what Christian does.
Yeah, we all expected it, and yeah.
Again, I love you, Hayden, but I didn't think you were going to beat Christian.
No. Second match, of course, the big one of the day, Sam Laidlow, Sam Long, and Lionel Sanders. We've spoken a lot about that one.
Lionel Sanders, incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Sam Laidlaw, yeah.
but I think both Sam Long and Sam Laidlow, Sam Laidlow, 23 years of age. He was
Sam Long's 27.
Sam Long's 26. So, Sam Laidlow was the youngest in the field and huge future, both of them ahead of them. Yeah. Next matchup, Magnus Ditlev, Rudy Von Berg, and Maxi Newman.
Went exactly how I expected.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly how did. I think RVB is a phenomenal athlete, but I genuinely think Magnus can win Kona this year.
He's a complete athlete.
I'm not. It's not a clear cut thing. In fact, based on my history with this podcast, I actually should be saying that Magnus is done. We're not going to see him do anything
because then he'll come through.
But legitimately, I think we are seeing Magnus. He has. I am Magnus's agent, but I think we are like he's a complete athlete at the moment, and the race went exactly how I expected it.
And you know what I love most about Magnus? Or what I love most about our sport at the moment, particularly with these young guns coming through, is the diversity of character. So we've just mentioned Sam Laidlow, Sam Long, two very extroverted in a way, particularly on social media. And then you've got someone like Magnus Ditlev and Frederick Funk, both 24 years of age, and the complete opposite. And we need that. I'm not saying one's better than the other. We need this diversity to make it interesting.
I did love. I think I heard when they were interviewing Sam Long, where I think somebody was saying that Sam Long was like, "Did I ride faster than Magnus? Did I ride faster than Magnus?" Which he did, but it's like, dude, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's a triathlon.
It's a triathlon, mate. Magnus incredible. Rudy was great, but I just think Magnus is moving to that.
He really is, and. Obviously Magnus is he doesn't like to talk about himself. He's a little bit of, I wouldn't go as far as to say he's an introvert, but he's not media savvy yet. He doesn't like big crowds. And I remember after he won Roth and had that phenomenal race. 9 seconds off.
I can't.
Time. Don't even get me started.
Yeah,
crazy.
I have pleaded this case on this podcast.
It's crazy.
That performance still doesn't get the. It doesn't get the
accolades it deserves. I agree. It was truly remarkable.
If that had been his debut, if we take out that Texas race where he had that, it's the best debut.
Oh, without a
maybe doubt. Blah blah blah. But
no, sorry, without a doubt, because he did it solo. It wasn't in a group. It wasn't.
No, not just that. He would have beat Jan Frodeno.
Yeah,
I think even if Jan was fit, I think Magnus had him covered.
He would have been running scared for a long time.
Because again, we've just spoken about Ali at the start. Magnus raced smart.
He did.
Rode up to Froda and then didn't do what.
But I've said that from the first time I ever met Magnus as a 23-year-old. He's got maturity beyond his years. He really does. But the cutest thing with Magnus is the next day he came up to me and he said, "Oh, Belinda," he goes, "do I have to give a winner's speech?" I said, "Magnus, you won one of the biggest races, not just in Europe, in the world, one of the most prestigious races in the world. Yes, you have to give a winner's speech." And I remember walking away thinking, "Oh, Jesus, this is going to be the worst speech ever. It's going to be terrible."
He nailed it.
Of
course he did.
He nailed it.
I also want to thank.
I was gobsmacked.
I do want to thank you also personally, because you did sit down with Magnus for his post-race interview at the Collins Cup, which made me very happy, and you gave him a lot of love during the broadcast as well. So
I love him. He's one of my favorites.
Again, I like the fact that Magnus has people like yourself who are so supportive of him, because he's.
Obviously in my game I deal with professional athletes every day, and truly in our sport we really don't have many that I don't have time for. I have time for everyone, and you're not supposed to have favorites. Obviously I'm supposed to stay impartial, but being the person I am, it's very difficult for me, and there are a small group of up and coming athletes that I just cannot help but give that extra bit of love to, because they deserve it, because they do everything right, and you can just see that they are the next gen. I keep talking about this next gen, but it's true. And Magnus is definitely, at the top of the list when it comes to.
Well, I don't want to be accused of being biased, so we need to move on.
I know we need to. Next matchup was Patrick Langer, Jason West, and Aaron Royal. I think again,
I'm not.
Aaron Royal. He reminds me a little bit of Ash Gendel. He's now moving up into half distance racing. He's very, very good. He's got a little bit more experience than Ash does.
He has done it, because I remember
he's done a
Sunny
couple.
Coast a few times and stuff.
Yep.
Again, I think for me, I think of Patrick Langer as an Ironman specific. I know he's not, but I always think of him as that.
I definitely think he is.
Whereas Aaron, that Edmonton race, third place against it.
Yep. He was the last. He was actually the last one.
Patrick
in Edmonton to get a wild card into that race.
Is he okay?
Oh,
He
look,
didn't look good.
no,
He
he's
got passed by who did I see run past him from the race behind him?
Jason West.
No.
Oh no, from the race. Oh, the race. That's
Gustav.
right. He did.
Gustav
Gustav
passed
did.
him.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
I thought,
Sorry.
and I was like, that's not
No,
normal,
that's not the
because
Patrick.
Lang is one of the best runners
Yeah,
in the sport.
yeah, yeah.
So that's when I'm like, okay,
And again, we don't know where he is in his training. I mean, most of these athletes that are concentrating, and I'm not trying to make an excuse. It's just fact.
And again, and I'm not trying to be. The Collins Cup is a race that payment is based on ranking, not on performance. So
it is. But in saying that,
not a criticism. It's just,
I know that when you are racing for someone other than yourself, you do go that extra mileage. It'd be quite easy if
that guard because your race doesn't count.
but he still raced hard.
Of course,
oh my God. Yeah. I still think these athletes, because they know they are part of a team.
Yeah, I get
I
it.
still saw them dig.
I mean,
regardless of they're going
nobody
to
was
take
out
home the
going
same
to the
money.
motion. Nobody's exactly.
No, they all went to the well and back.
Exactly.
Really
we saw what Jan did last year.
Yep.
The last time
exactly.
The last time I saw Jan Frodeno look like that, it was when he was racing Ali Brownlee in short course.
I agree.
Again, I think for me, as both as Australians, it's really nice to see us have some. We have bad athletes, but I like that we've got Aaron Royal.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is the next phase in their career for both Aaron and Ash Gentle. And I think they're off to an incredible start.
Yeah, it's good. I like Aaron Royal.
He's a fantastic. And you're getting married at the end of this year to Non, who just had an incredible race in Munich. To end her career. My gosh. And then Commonwealth Games and then mixed relay. So no, it's great. Gustav Eden, Matt Hansen, and Jackson Laundry. Again, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, it was always Gustav.
We don't even need to talk about Gustav.
But again, I was surprised. We barely saw Gustav on the.
I know.
He really didn't. And consider he's world number 2. That's just it's the nature of the beast, and because he was so late. Yeah, I was surprised we didn't see more of Gustav. But
we needed to.
But Gustav just did what Gustav did. Second fastest result of the day.
Yep.
I wonder what the conversation's like between the two of those, because I know Christian would have been like, "Hey mate, I
ran faster than you. So you got me in Edmonton, but I cramped.
I cramped. Yeah,
I got you this time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? I'm really, really excited for Dallas, because obviously we're going to have both those athletes there again, and I think Christian will have something to prove.
I really I look at last year where Jan had a faster time than Gustav, and I don't think Gustav gave a shit.
Nah.
And that's why I think that, whereas I know Christian would be like, I need to go fast.
No, I totally agree with you. Gustav's the most relaxed man. Always, he's
running in Crocs on the track next to Lionel.
He's a funny, but he's such a funny guy. I just hope that all of the Gustav fans out there realize how funny this man is. He's got the driest sense of humor. I can't stop laughing when I'm around him. He's a good egg.
I've lived in Norway. I speak Norwegian, that whole thing. He is not. Neither of those boys are typical Norwegians.
No,
they are very different to Mccauley as well. They're great. So the last match.
Yep. Daniel Beckergaard, Chris Leiferman, and Braden Curry.
Now
I thought that it would be a little closer. I'll be honest.
No, this was one of the harder picks, I think, because I looked at St. George, and I think I expected Daniel to beat Braden in St. George, and I still think that if Braden had paced that marathon better in St. George, I think he would have won St. George.
Yep.
I kind of expected, but then again, I'm a Daniel fan, and the 329 and the way that Daniel is, I think Daniel is a much better middle distance runner or athlete. Braden is an Ironman athlete to me. Daniel is a bit of both. I think he's better at 70.3, but Daniel Beckergaard is red hot.
To be honest, I'm a fan of all three of these men.
Who was the third one? I don't know.
Chris Leiferman.
Again,
absolute darling.
Most underrated American.
Oh my God. And the nicest guy. And I know it doesn't matter if they're nice guys or not. We're talking about racing, but for me,
no, we like them.
We do. You could not get 3 nicer men if you tried. They're just genuinely good people.
Yeah. So there we go. Incredible races.
That was the long-winded version of it.
Europe won again. Unfortunately, I don't think. I'll be honest.
I thought it was, honestly, when we went through it on paper, and I sat with Crowy. Crowy was fantastic over there, by the way.
He's incredible.
He really, excuse my French, gave a shit. He really did. He took it very seriously. It's who he is. He's not going to take on that role unless he takes it seriously.
I also liked Erin Baker.
All of the captains over there were brilliant. And Erin Baker, she gave a speech at the opening, and it was incredible.
She doesn't get the praise that she deserves.
No, I know Erin and Scott quite well, because obviously they have a holiday house in Noosa, so they're often there.
Belinda Granger is the mayor of Noosa.
Mayor of Noosa, that's great. And I love it. Scott's got such a dry sense of humor as well, and they're just an incredible couple. And for a female, obviously being a female in the sport, Erin paved the way. She was an amazing
the
athlete
stuff
back in
she's
the
done,
day.
the stuff she's done for female triathlon.
She refused to race so many times when she at detriment to her career, when she could have raced.
Another Kiwi.
Yep,
We
could have
talked about
raced,
Kiwis.
and another Kiwi, exactly. Didn't race because there wasn't equal prize purses back when she was racing, and the men were getting more, and she was offered lots of money to race, but said no, not equal prize purses. I'm not racing, and to be able to do that, we are racing now equal prize money, thanks to Erin Baker.
100%. Now, the only thing I want to touch on, and again, because we have to be what we do on the podcast, America got destroyed.
They did.
I understand that they've modeled this off the Ryder's Cup, which is it the right way to do it in triathlon, just considering it's one country?
I know. Yeah.
It is. And again, I know you guys listen at the PTO.
I almost feel like we need to split Europe.
Yeah, so do I.
I think, and technically speaking,
Norway, Germany versus.
and technically speaking, the UK.
I've said this. I have
even part of.
I have
Europe
been on
anymore.
this bandwagon since it was announced.
And I think UK have got enough good athletes. Well, maybe not in the men, but definitely with the females. I mean, the UK athletes are incredible.
Alistair.
Yeah, Alistair Brownlee. But then they
Joe Skipper, friend of the podcast.
Bit of depth, but so what? I think we could do Europe, UK, internationals, and US. I don't know.
I want to see it based not on geography. Like
So you're saying maybe America and Canada get to match up together,
or maybe it's just a team of athletes.
Yeah,
like it doesn't have to be.
Oh, okay.
I just think for me,
okay.
Again, maybe it's because it's international. It's not. I don't know, but I just want to see. I actually don't particularly care as long as the races are
close.
And
if we imagine, as we said, if we could get 12 races like Lionel and
imagine
Sam.
Lionel versus Christian versus Gustav.
Yeah.
Imagine Jan versus Christian versus Gustav, or I want to see you get those athletes and you literally pick it based off. And if it is one person who makes the choice and is what he's going to give us, the Sam Lionel Sam, I don't care what countries they're from.
As long as we get that back to back
person the tides are going to change in the sport, and we are looking at this in their second year. In 10 years' time, we might be having a very different conversation because America things swing. But I looked at it this year and I thought America has got no chance.
No.
When Taylor Knibb was in there, I thought maybe if she had have raced Danny, I don't think she would have beat Danny this year.
No, I don't either.
But
and it still only would have been one race that they
correct
would have done okay.
Sam Long second place was their best result.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was anyone else second? Matt Hansen? No.
I can't even remember when Maddie came.
So good at this. Anyway, Collins Cup.
But they didn't do. No, they didn't do well.
Collins Cup 2022. There you go. One last thing before we wrap this up, Belinda Granger, is I want to talk about the race that happened the next day.
World champs.
We saw
long distance world champs.
Charles Barclay make her comeback. Pretty good comeback.
Unbelievable comeback.
I expected her to go well.
And the one little bit of controversy that kept coming out from people was the timelines don't add up. If you follow Lucy on Instagram, and when she said she was finally back at running, it was probably 3 weeks before, and then to come out and run that. Well, that's what I mean. I mean, you know what?
Mental mind games.
Athletes can do what they want on their own bloody social media pages. That's their prerogative. They can do what they want. If you choose to believe it, that's your stupidity.
In the lead up to St. George, when Jan was out skiing all the time, people going, he's injured. I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah, no.
He's playing the mind.
Yeah. Macca was the one that first said this. The race does not start when the gun goes off. The race starts weeks, sometimes months before, when the mind games begin. That's when the race starts. And if Lucy Charles Barclay's decided to say that she's only started running back 3 weeks before, and people choose to believe it, well then, stupid to you.
And again, context. I thought Emma Pallant-Brown was going to go to that race for something to prove.
And I still think she did. I still think she had an incredible race.
But again, I just want to, in the context, that is what to me shows how impressive
Lucy's race was. Yeah.
Because I've just spent a lot of time talking about how good Emma has been. Again,
Emma's an incredible athlete.
So
one of the greatest, and particularly over that half distance.
And I've said it, I think triathlon is more exciting when Lucy Charles Barclay is part of it, because she brings.
Absolutely.
I still think her St. George 70.3 run is.
Yep. And just the mere fact that she ran, I think she had the second fastest run of the day on Sunday. I think the only one to run faster than her was Louisa Baptista.
Okay.
who ran fast, who had a great race, but was, always behind. But yeah, great. You couldn't have scripted that comeback race any better if you tried.
Men's race. I actually don't know who won.
Pierre Lecour. It's a bit of a controversy.
Really? What happened?
I have to take another drink of wine. Oh, look, I went out and watched that race. I obviously watched the live coverage that was taking place as well, and I was out on course. And it was a little disappointing. I mean, it was 12-meter rule when really it should be 20, but obviously World Triathlon rules, it was 12 meters. And I'll be honest, I think Pierre Lecour took the piss a little bit.
Okay.
And everyone's saying, oh, yeah, but there weren't enough draft busters out there, and the draft busters should pull me up. But, I'm sick to death of this. Why can't athletes start taking responsibility for doing the right thing as well? It's not just up to the draft busters or the officials out on course, just as it's not just up to the athletes. It's a combination. We need both to be working together to make sure that it's a fair and clean race. I saw Florian Angert and then Freddie Funk, and I've seen video footage. And don't give me this crap about camera angles. I've been in triathlon for 30 years. I understand camera angles. Before I was commentating, I spent 4 or 5 years sitting on the back of a damn motorbike doing live coverage updates. So I understand camera angles. Pierre Lecour was not 12 meters. Sorry. So it's disappointing. Is he a great swimmer and runner? Yes. Do I think he deserves to win the World Championship? Well, unfortunately, no. I think both Florian Angert and Freddie Funk got ripped off.
Okay.
So honest opinion, and
we love it. We love it. Thank you.
It's disappointing. That's all. A little bit disappointing. I mean, we see drafting far too often, and like Florian Angert said on his social media, when is it going to end? Every single bloody race, the same shit every time. And
wasn't an issue with sub-7.
No, it wasn't. And I just think, particularly when it comes to championship races, for example, world championships, world title races. I'm sorry, but if we can't get it right at the top of the pegs, how are we going to? It's never going to trickle down. So I think it's frustrating, and I just hope we can get to a point, whether it's using Race Range or whether that is what we end up going with, or that we get more officials out on course that actually have the ball sack to do their job,
or athletes just choose not to.
Or athletes choosing to do the right thing and have respect for their fellow athletes and respect for the sport. I don't know what the answer is, but it's got to stop.
Well, Belinda Granger, it has been fantastic to have you on the podcast.
I didn't really want to end on that horrible note because you know me, I'm a happy person. But
well, we can end on some positives. It has been fantastic to have you here in Poland with us.
Absolutely
educating the future generation. We've got some young superstar triathletes here.
Gorgeous young up and coming athletes in a variety of different sports.
Yeah, it's cool. It's one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to spend this time with these young athletes. And again, it's fantastic to have you. And again, I'm genuinely happy to get you on the podcast.
Me too.
As I'm not surprised, we literally have spoken for like ages. As I knew we would, I had no doubt that we were going to be fine. Guys, if you're listening next week, I'll be back in Australia, so we'll be back to more regular style broadcasting. The stuff we say at the end, if you want to support the podcast, head to mxendurance.com/podcast. You get bonus content. I'm going to record one with Chris while I'm here. You get the whole suite of benefits, partner discounts, all that good stuff. Keeps us doing the podcast, stuff like that. If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at tford14. Belinda, you are at Belinda Granger on Instagram, I believe, or just watch any race, basically, and Belinda will be in commentary. And yeah, guys, we'll be back next week. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Belinda Granger.
It was a lot of fun.
Too easy. See you later, guys.
Thanks.